Hi, how y'all doing? It's Friday, April 11th. um, about 11 a.m. as of recording this video. April 11th is my childhood best friend's older sister's birthday. She's just a couple of months older than me. He was a couple of years older than me. We used to have a good time, all of us running around the neighborhood barefoot, getting into things. Those were the days, man. Anyway, happy birthday, Amy. This will be the last video I do probably until Sunday evening, because it's the weekend and I've got Joey. And I certainly don't like talking about this stuff when he's around. Excuse me. I did not sleep good last night, not at all. Been on the phone today, and the law firm that I talked to a couple of years ago is still there, and they are ready to go. They gave me a couple of links and a couple of contact numbers to some resources that are not always out there in the open. My mom also found a couple of things over the last couple of days that might help. We're gonna see. So I'm not yet pulling the trigger, as it were, on hiring a foreclosure attorney. I'm gonna try these other things first, because these other things are possible ways out without foreclosure. No guarantees. So foreclosure, I'm ready to go with a foreclosure attorney if Rocket decides that's what they're gonna do. And contact these other places, these other resources. They're a little bit harder to find, stay a little bit more in the background, because there are so many people out there that get into trouble of their own making, and they don't do anything about it until it's almost too late, and then they go looking for help. And these things they're a little bit harder to find, I guess, because to try to keep those kinds of people from draining the pot, so to speak. It's like there was a guy that had a place, and he decided he had to accessorize his car to match some of his friends and coworkers, and decided he had to have this or that new video game, and then all of a sudden he's 6 months behind on his mortgage, and he could have paid the mortgage and just drove drove his car as it was until he had climbed the ladder a little bit, had a little more money to play with. He could have stuck with not playing the latest game, but he wouldn't have been part of the hip crowd if he had done that, and instead made himself part of the homeless crowd. I read about that one not too long ago. Um, a woman that did something similar, deciding she needed, the latest Chanel bag or these shoes or, the newest phone, and she paid the light bill. She didn't pay the mortgage until it was too late. That is not me. I have very, very, very valid reasons for missing the payments that I have missed. I don't think it's fair that Rocket Mortgage has, by now, basically stuck 2.5, almost three extra mortgage payments in late fees on me than what I've actually missed. But, so be it. So I'm going to try these resources today and next week, and if nothing really pans out, then I am ready to go with the foreclosure attorney. And we will see what we'll see. There are, of course, no guarantees. I do have a good chance, because of my health, of winning the foreclosure case. And helping to reduce my interest some. How much, we'll have to wait and see. If I could get it down to like $1,500 a month, that would be workable. I could absorb that, and I could pay the other bills, still manage a very meager but consistent living as far as groceries and whatnot, and make the co-pays on my eyes and the other stuff I'm having to pay on right now. But they've currently got me at $1,879, and that went up last year from $1,743, and I was managing $1,743. It was tight, but I was managing that. But I didn't have the co-pays with my eyes and this other stuff that I was having to deal with, and I wasn't having to pay for the Part B, which Part B alone, if they don't cover it, is $189 a month, which for someone in my shoes, that's a lot of money. So if I could just get my mortgage payment down to like $1,500 a month, that would be very doable. They would still be making a shit ton of interest, because my minimum principal payment is only something like let's say it's $243 or it's $273, somewhere in that area. And then the rest of my mortgage payment is escrow and interest. So, they wouldn't be making as much interest, but they would still be making a shit ton of interest if I could get my total payment down to like $1,500 a month. And if it was something that they could just let me do that for a while, for a year, 2 years, long enough to get strong and healthy again, get my eyes back and get back to work, and then we could talk about coming back up to where I'm at now, that would be okay. I would be fine with that. I ain't trying to screw nobody. I'm just trying not to get screwed, But I mean, I know I've said this before, but I have not been able to afford, to make anything more than the minimum payment every month on my mortgage. And everybody says, no, you can't do that. You gotta be able to pay more than the minimum payment. If I could, I would, but I don't have it. Between me and my son, because I have him as a beneficiary dependent. Between the two of us, I clear just a little over $2,300 a month from SSDI. That's a lot more than what most people get on SSDI. My dad barely clears $1,400 a month. But the one benefit my dad has is, their place is not much. It is not much, but they own it. They don't have a mortgage payment. The worst thing they have is their light bill, and then their yearly service tax garbage and shit like that. Then of course, and they're living. They got living and other bills and whatnot. But that's the worst that they got, and they just managed to scrape by. I've got the mortgage, I've got my utilities, I've got my living, and now I've got all these damned extra medical bills and having to cover my Part B, which if I can do it, that's one thing, but it's really hard for me to do. And you would think that, again, in the shape I'm in right now, they would take care of that, but they don't do that. So I have been able to live for a long time at $2,300 a month with a $1,700 a month mortgage payment, and I've been able to just barely squeeze by, by the skin of my teeth. Before I got sick last year, I could do stuff on the side, like do a brake job here and there, a water pump here and there, something like that. Fix a lawnmower, do some BS handyman work on the side. I could make a couple extra $100 a month, and I'd be all right. But I can't do that stuff now, and now it's just the SSDI, and it's just not there. It's just not enough. So hopefully one of these other resources that I have been provided might do something, bring the mortgage current. I get the mortgage current, then I can, hopefully refinance to a different type of loan where I can reduce the interest some. Probably not. I would not be able to reduce it from $1,879 to something like $1,500. That they would not go for that without some sort of external compulsion. But if I could get it back down to $1,740, I would be able to do that a lot. It would still be really, really tight, but I'd be able to do that easier than $1,879. It's crazy to think that you can barely rent an apartment or a cheap mobile home in this area for that kind of money. But I guess the days of being able to live affordably are just done. Every now and then I see people, posting on Facebook, I'm looking for a place to rent, $1,500 a month is my budget, and everybody laughs at them. It's crazy. But I can't, do it anyway. I'm like I've said before, I'm not even physically capable of moving, It's just not going to happen right now. So I've got to keep the place. Try these other resources, and if they pan out, great. If they don't, then I am ready to fight the foreclosure. And I've got what is hopefully a damn good attorney that is going to fight for me. And we'll see what we'll see. So I'll probably jump back on here Sunday evening after the wonderful, glorious person that is my ex-wife. That's a lie. Comes and picks up the truly amazing and glorious person that is my son. And leaves me alone again. So I'll probably jump back on here then, make some phone calls, and gotta get stuff ready for today. Joey's got his ABA therapy at 4:30. Got to get him to that and then rush him back to the soccer field so he can play his soccer game. I wish he didn't have soccer and ABA on the same day. But what can you do? So then I got to get him back here and get him fed and get him to bed. I am not in the slightest going to attempt to adhere to any of my ex-wife's bedtime rules for my son. She says he's not old enough to have any extra time to stay up on the weekends. I disagree. I think it's perfectly fine to give him an extra 15 minutes on Friday and Saturday night, and I'm going to continue to do that, and she can continue to bitch. Because she lets him stay up, till almost 10 o'clock during the week anyway. So, she got problems over there. They're not created by me. But yeah, I'll get back on here Sunday evening and probably not going to have anything substantive to talk about, but, just talk about something. Try to keep the algorithm happy. Maybe garner some more support for the channel, some more support for GoFundMe. Yes, I do have a GoFundMe. I had a couple of people the last couple of days, last night, asking me if I had one. Yes, I do. In that video I made the other day, I was really distraught and let down. I didn't mention it, and I didn't post a link to it in the description. But I do have a GoFundMe, and the link will be posted in the description for this video in the event that you would like to help out. I'd be much appreciated, much obliged. If you can't or don't want to help out, I understand. And I thank you anyway. Y'all have a good weekend. Be safe, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.